I never thought grease-stained hands and a box of tools would land me in the middle of a tribunal chamber. My life had always been simple. Patch a leaking coolant line, weld together a fractured hull, coax a tired engine into one more voyage. That was who I was, a mechanic. But on that day, the air in the chamber was heavy with incense and judgment, and I stood as the only human in a room full of Ve'ari gods and counselors. At the center of it all was her. They dragged her forward in chains, the girl whose name I didn't yet know. Her silver eyes burned like dying stars, but her mouth was a ruin. Blood still clung to her lips, dark and dried. Her tongue had been cut out, punishment for what they called lies. The counselors' voices echoed like iron hammers. She spread false warnings. She infected the people with fear. Now she is silenced. I should have looked away. I should have minded my business like every other worker who passed through this backwater system. But I couldn't. She was trying to speak still, mouthing words without sound, shaking her head violently as if denial alone could erase her torment. No lie looked like that. No deceiver bled that way. The gods sneered at her. The council sat smug in their certainty. And me? I felt something I hadn't in years, a raw, wrenching pull in my chest. Machines I could fix. Engines I could rebuild. But this was truth, shattered and buried. I didn't know why, but I knew I couldn't stay silent. In that moment, I decided, if no one else would believe her, I would. And if she truly carried the warning they feared, I'd drag it into the light with my own hands. She couldn't speak, but that didn't stop her from trying to communicate. They threw her into the prison yard like broken cargo, left to wither under the pale suns. I went there under the pretense of repairing the surveillance drones that circled overhead, their rotors whining as if even they were tired of the job. She sat in the dust, shackles heavy on her wrists, her eyes flicking between me and the gods. When she realized I wasn't there to hurt her, she dug her nails into the ground and began scratching shapes. At first, I thought it was nonsense, lines and jagged arcs. But when I crouched down, tools clattering at my side, I understood. Symbols. Not Ve'ari script, not human, but a desperate fusion of both. I watched her draw a circle surrounded by jagged teeth. She pointed up at the sky, then back down at her crude drawing. Star Eaters, she traced, and the hairs on my arms rose. The gods laughed when they saw us. Still telling stories, one jeered. We cut out her tongue, and still she finds ways to whimper. Their boots kicked out over her drawings, but I had already seen enough. She pressed her blooded finger into my palm, leaving behind a trembling streak. I recognized that look, someone who had seen something no one else would believe. And I realized I had seen hints of it too. Months back, I'd examined ships drifting in from the edge of the system, twisted metal that defied explanation. Plasma fire didn't bend alloys that way. Raiders didn't leave debris fields without looting. It hadn't added up. Until now. She wasn't insane. She wasn't lying. She was warning us. And the galaxy was too proud, too blind, to listen. I brought her to my workshop under the excuse that she was helping me sort salvage. The gods didn't care. To them, she was broken, discarded. To me, she was the only thread of truth I had. My little corner of the docks smelled of ozone and rust, a graveyard of half-dead machines waiting for a second life. She stepped inside, eyes darting across shelves stacked with coils, fractured drives, and motors older than most of the counselors who had condemned her. I rolled out an old relay scanner, human make, stripped for parts years ago, but never quite dead. Its casing was battered, its circuits patched with wires scavenged from shipwrecks, but if coaxed just right, it could still sing. She came alive the moment she saw it, pointing urgently at the array of dishes. Without words, she guided my hands, pushing me to align its sensors with the outer belt. I powered it up, heart pounding as the scanner groaned like a waking giant. The feed blinked onto a cracked display. At first, just static. Then shapes. Images. Entire mining stations reduced to drifting rubble, cut apart with precision no pirate fleet could match. Hulls torn open as though something vast had swallowed them whole. The scars glowed, not from fire, but from an energy I had never seen before, metal twisted as if reality itself had been chewed. Her breath caught. She jabbed a finger at the display, then at her ruined mouth. No sound, no voice, only eyes that begged me to understand. And I did. These weren't fables. These were wounds left by something moving through the void. The council had silenced the one witness. But I was a mechanic, and I had just seen the proof with my own eyes. The tribunal chamber reeked of arrogance and incense when I burst through its doors. The guards tried to shove me back, but I forced my way forward, lugging the battered relay console like a coffin in my arms. My voice cracked against the high stone walls as I shouted for the council's attention. They sneered at me, the grease-stained human who had no rank, no power, nothing but dirty hands and stubbornness. I slammed the console down on that polished table. The screen flickered to life, still marred by static, but the images were clear enough. Shattered stations, ships torn apart, voids filled with wreckage. I pointed, breath ragged. Look, this isn't a lie. This isn't madness. Something is coming. They leaned forward, eyes narrowing, and then the laughter started. Cold, dismissive, fabricated. One hissed. A human trick. Another waved me off. Mechanics no grease, not truth. My temper boiled. I slammed my wrench against the table, so hard the sound thundered through the hall. I fix things. I don't build lies. You think I'd risk my life hauling this here, risk your blades and your prisons, just to make fools of you? My words echoed in the silence that followed. From the shadows, she watched, shackled, weakened, but her silver eyes burned brighter than the torches. I saw her lips move, no voice left to give, but I could read the word, please. They turned from me, dismissing the images as human sabotage. My fists clenched, my pulsar hammer in my ears. If they would not believe her, and they would not believe me, then there was only one path left. I would drag the truth out into the stars myself, and I would make the galaxy see. That night, I made my choice. Staying meant chains for both of us, maybe execution if the council grew tired of my defiance. Running meant death in the void, but at least it was our choice. I broke into the docks with nothing but my toolkit and desperation, dragging her along in the shadows. The guards barely noticed. Who would imagine a tongueless prisoner and a mechanic daring to steal a ship? The freighter I chose was ancient, its hull pitted with rust, engines coughing dust. But I knew her bones. I'd patched her more than once, coaxed her reactors back to life. With frantic hands, I rerouted fuel lines, bypassed safeties, and forced the ignition. The engines roared like a wounded beast, and suddenly alarms blared across the station. She clung to the console as the ship trembled, her eyes wide with terror and hope. "Hold on," I muttered, teeth gritted as I forced the thrusters to full burn. The docking clamp snapped, and the freighter lurched free, clawing upward through atmosphere. Bolts rattled from the ceiling, panels sparked, but we kept climbing. When the black swallowed us, I tuned the scanner to the coordinates we'd seen before. The screen lit up, shadows moving against starlight. Not ships, not fleets, shapes too vast, too wrong. A hunger written into the void itself. She pointed, trembling. Her nails dug into my arm. I didn't need her voice to understand. These were the Star Eaters. They weren't raiders or conquerors. They were something older, something that didn't just destroy, it consumed. My throat tightened. We were a single failing freighter against a storm that could erase worlds. And yet, as the ship rattled beneath me, I swore we wouldn't turn back. Someone had to face the truth. We had nothing but scrap and desperation, but that was enough to start with. In the belly of the freighter, I stripped cargo haulers for thrusters, wired plasma batteries into Dura-rig mounts, and turned mining lasers into weapons. My hands bled from torn gloves. Sparks bit into my arms, but I worked like a man possessed. She stayed with me through every hour, passing tools, sketching quick diagrams on the deck with bits of chalk and metal. Without a tongue, she still found ways to teach me what she knew. When the first shadow blotted out the stars ahead, my breath caught. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't anything I could name. It was absence given form, a wound in the sky that moved with intent. Smaller ones circled it like predators around a carcass. The scanners screamed warnings I'd never seen before, readings that broke their own logic. "They don't even belong to physics," I muttered, my hands shaking on the controls. She touched my arm, steadying me, her silver eyes unflinching. For her, silence wasn't fear, it was defiance. When the creatures closed in, we lit our trap. I dumped the cargo hold, revealing the nest of thrusters I'd hidden inside. With a single command, the freighter spun, and the hold erupted in a storm of fire. Plasma batteries discharged, mining lasers fled, and the void bloomed with light brighter than any sun. One of the shadows recoiled. It shrieked in silence, its body unraveling like smoke caught in a gale. For the first time, the Star Eaters bled. But victory came with a price. The freighter groaned, metal tearing, alarms wailing in every language I knew. Panels burst, oxygen hissed away, and I felt the cold fingers of the void pressing in. We had hurt them, but they were not done with us yet. We should have died in that wreck, and maybe we would have if not for the emergency pods I'd half-bolted into the freighter's ribs weeks earlier. The hull split like rotten wood, but the pod held, spitting us out into the black. For hours, maybe days, I couldn't tell. We drifted among the ruins of our own trap, oxygen thinning, alarms long since dead. I thought that was where it ended. But the signal got out. Our scanners had recorded everything, the ambush, the shadow, the impossible wound we had carved into it. By the time rescue found us, fragments of that transmission were already flooding the relay networks. Every council, every outpost, every captain saw what we had seen. The galaxy couldn't laugh it away anymore. They brought her before the council again, no longer in chains but on her feet, though she leaned on me for strength. Healers surrounded her, hands weaving living tissue, grafting something new where her tongue had been torn away. When she first opened her mouth, her voice was broken, trembling, but it carried farther than any scream. "I told you," she whispered, raw and sharp as glass. And he proved me right. I stood beside her, grease-stained, exhausted, still smelling of burned circuits and plasma fire. A mechanic. Nothing more. But in that chamber, for the first time, they listened, not because of titles or bloodlines, but because we had bled for the truth together. The galaxy would prepare now. Fleets would rise, defenses would be forged. But they would always remember who sounded the first alarm, a silent skull, and the human fool who chose to believe her. Machines can be rebuilt. Voices can be restored. But truth, once broken, needs someone stubborn enough to piece it back together. And that was my job.